We carry on now with the life of Paul Mauser that you will see is very interesting. I start with a postcard that is available in the archive. In this postcard you see the Kaiser Wilhelm II, the Austrian Emperor, and on top Zeppelin, and on bottom Paul Mauser. Okay, and then there is something about okay. But what is important about this is that Paul Mauser was already a very important person during his life. Nowadays we confuse a little bit. We have a different idea because when we speak about Georg Luger, when we speak about Burkhardt and so on, the other firearm inventors, we put all of them more or less on the same level. But I would like to highlight that Georg Luger, in the end, in those days, was just an employee of DWM, like Burkhardt, while Paul Mauser was a leader. While Paul Mauser was a leader of a company, and it was a huge company. Selling weapons and firearms and rifles all over the world. So there is quite a difference. Nowadays, the collector says Luger, Mauser, Burkhardt, same level, but it's not true. Paul Mauser was already a VIP in those days. So let's discuss now about Oberdorf. I tell you already, Oberdorf is a small city in the middle of Black Forest in Württemberg. And what we want to highlight is, was the Mauser family an old family in Oberdorf or not? What we can say is that is no. The father of Paul Mauser, Andreas Mauser, was used to work in the Ludwigsburg arsenal. In 1811 there was a, let's say, a rearrangement of these different arsenals, and what happened is that in 1811, 1812 another royal firearm factory was set up in Oberdorf, and therefore, quite strange indeed, the 25th of December 1812, so the Christmas day, the family, the Andreas and Agatha Mauser, moved from Ludwigsburg to Oberdorf to start working in the new royal factory in Oberdorf. In 1815, the first, let's say, son of these two, of the Mauser parents, born, was actually, in 1815, correct. And we have then in 1834 Wilhelm Mauser, and in 1838 Paul Mauser. Between the first and the last, there are 12 kids. So in the end, Paul was the last of 13 kids, but let me say, poor Maria did more. But unfortunately, some of them passed away when they were really small. So in the end, we have 13 sons and daughters. This one is the letter that has been signed by the King of Württemberg to establish the royal factory in Oberdorf. These one are typical weapons of that period that the royal factory was used to produce. And what happened is that, we discussed already when I show you the diaries, in 1852 Paul Mauser finished his school, it was 14 years old, and started working as an apprentice in the workshop of the father, Andreas. Andreas made a little bit of career inside the royal factory. In the beginning was just an employee, then he became a gunsmith, but not really dealing with firearms, but with swords. And what is important to highlight is that Paul Mauser was 14 years old, and you see here, I just took some photo from, I don't know, no, it's not really visible. Here you can see this young child working in those days, as they started working in the factory around 14, 15 years old. They have small hands, they can really be specialized for certain work activity. And also something that we discovered that was quite interesting. You know, our manuals, guns manuals that we have for pistol, and they were made by child because the ends are small. Okay, so the ends of the child is smaller than the adult, and then they don't occupy too much space in the photo. Yeah? So we have glass plates where you see in the background a child holding a gun and doing the movement, but it's a child. Yeah, he's not an adult. Yeah, they use also the child for taking picture that they use in the user manual. And so what is very interesting about Paul Mauser is that Paul Mauser started working 14 years old, and guess what? It was just a brilliant guy. So this guy approached the senior workers, and then he said, okay, you are doing it this way, but if you do it that way, you are speeding up the production and you do less steps. And this was something that made this guy famous quite immediately. In fact, it was 14 years old, and let's say the leader of the Royal Factory said, okay, now you go all over the facility, and then you improve the steps. Yeah, that was 14, 15 years old. So it was, you see, it was a brilliant technician with zero technical skill, yeah, because it was a 14 years old child. In 1859, he was called for the compulsory service, and guess what? He went back to Ludwigsburg, where his father was coming let's say, in the arsenal. And also there, he arrived, spent 4 or 5 months, and then the officer says, this guy is too much for us, okay? Let's send back to Oberdorf, because it's much more important for him to work in the Royal Factory than spend his time here with us as a simple, let's say, soldier, okay? When in 1859 he was back in Oberdorf, there are 2 events. His father was actually retired, and here there is something is important, is that his brother Franz moved to America to work with Remington. Yeah, we will discuss afterward when we discuss about Norris and Paul Mauser. Yeah, so keep in mind that one of the brother of Paul Mauser, was in USA working for Remington. When Paul Mauser was back from the compulsory military service, he worked with his father Willem in a new concept of cannon, a rear loading cannon. Let's say the first year of development and research of Paul Mauser were related to the tentative of making better the rear loading mechanism, either for cannons or for a rifle. Yeah? In fact, by the way, when he was military, he was able to handle the Dreyse rifle, yeah? And based upon this, he realized that, okay, we can improve this design. Yeah? This is what happened afterwards. And this one is the mock-up. This one is not a real cannon, but it's just a model that has been prepared by the 2 brothers, young brothers, and it was presented to the king of Württemberg, and for this he received 120 gold, I guess was the currency in that period. So nothing more than a good work, guys, carry on. Yeah, that's just a poor amount of money, but just to make them happy. Yeah. In 1863 and 1864 and 65, let's say, happens what we call the pre-Norris rifle design production. Okay, so in those periods they worked to improve the Dreyse rifle. They replaced the needle with a firing pin, and they work also. Initially, the design was good for either paper cartridge or metallic cartridge. Willem was busy with what's something that could be strange for us nowadays, but to build a cartridge where the bottom was metallic and the rest was paper, with the primer on the bottom, while in the Dresden primer was in the middle of the cartridge, and so on. So they start with this concept. The outcome of this is a rifle that is not very different from the one that is in here, this one. And I do believe, I'm not sure, that this photo here is the first time that you see them, because this photo comes from Pedro Mauser, and they were in the archive of Alphonse Mauser, the son of Willem. Okay, I'm not sure, but for me it's the first time that I see them. And if you compare these photos with the Norris rifle prototype that we have over there, we can see some aspects that are in common. Okay, so this one is one of the so-called pre-Norris rifle. To make short, they took this rifle, they present this rifle to the Prussians. The Prussians say, good job, but we have our Drese. We are sure that this Drese is the best rifle in the world. We don't need your solution. The brothers sent then this rifle to the Austrian ambassador in Stuttgart, and then from there to Vienna. And then at this point something happened. Something happened because in Vienna in those days there was a certain Samuel Norris that was the Remington representative in Europe. And as I told you, he was aware about what the Mauser brothers made in Oberndorf, because the father, Franz Mauser, was working in USA in the same company. So the name Mauser was for Norris not totally unknown. It was somebody that he knows. He saw this rifle and said, okay, this is a good design, mainly because this guy was a salesman. His job was moving to all headquarters in Europe, try to sell solution rifle or different kind of weapons to the different forces. Okay, so this guy recognized, was quite let's say skilled with this, and say, okay, there is a possibility to use this design to retrofit the chassepot in order to fire metallic cartridge. And this is the reason why he decided to go to Oberndorf and visit Paul and Willem to see if they can do something together. And this is what happened then. From 1866-67, the brother Mauser went to Liege and spent 3 years in Liege. They do something, but this is a matter of another presentation, so I don't want to enter now in these details because we have a specific presentation about Norris and Mauser. In the end, what happened is that in 1869, the contract with Norris was cancelled because, unfortunately, I don't know if unfortunately, but what happened is that Norris was unable to finalize the contract, the deal with the French forces. So in the end, it was also negative for Norris, the fact that he did all this in the background with respect to his company. I didn't mention this with the company. He was dealing this contract with the French as a personal activity. So when when Remington discovered this, they also fired Norris for this. So Norris in the end was unable to fulfill the contract, was unable to pay anymore the Mauser brother for this. And this was good because in the end they say, okay, the contract is over and you can keep your patent. Because all the Norris Mauser rifle was patented by Norris in USA. So why the Model 71 happens? If the royalties are for Norris. But at the end, Norris was unable to fulfill the economical engagement with the brothers and say, okay, we cancel the contract, you keep the patent, and for me, the game is over. This one was a little bit the story. So what happened is that in 1869, the Mauser brothers moved back from Liege to Germany. One went to Oberndorf, Paul Mauser, and as a last tentative before leaving Liege, with the help of Norris, they shipped one of these Norris rifle to the Prussian, to Spandau, close to Berlin, where there is the Prussian rifle commission, commission. And this time was now mature to understand this rifle, to better, after the Franco-Prussian War, where the chassepot was way better than the Drese. They say, okay, let's analyze this rifle. And what happened is that Paul went to Oberndorf, while Willem went to Spandau, and worked for 2-3 years, up to 72. He had a small workshop in the Spandau barrack, and he was dealing every day with the officer and the technician in Spandau in order to finalize the design of the rifle that finally in 1872 was accepted by the German army, in that period the unified German army, and becomes the first rifle using metallic cartridge used by the Germans. This was enough to make Wilhelm and Paul rich? No. Because in those days what happened is that, again, another good job, but no money. Yeah? Because they say, okay, we take the patent, we take the design, and all this rifle will be produced in the state arsenals. So there was no production for the brothers. Okay? So what they get in the end was just a contract to produce some small parts. But this was enough to set up a small company. Okay? Because you have to keep in mind that when Paul Mauser went to Oberdorf, he was working in a small workshop. And it was not a company, he was just working in a small workshop. And when this contract was finalized, they had the opportunity to build and to produce some parts for the Model 71 rifle. And okay, this one is just to tell you that 10 different prototypes were produced from the 70 to the 72 in order to submit these prototypes for the verification and validation in Spandau. But I don't enter too much in these details. So what happened is that in 1872 the contract is signed, and the brothers decided to build what we call the upper works, so the first facility, Mauser facility in Oberdorf. A note about this is that this Mauser facility was destroyed by a fire the 20th of August 1874, and we found trace of this event in the Paul Mauser diary as well. So what happened that is after that the Prussian acquired the M71, the second state that passed a contract to the brothers was Württemberg, yeah? But there was something that is important with this contract, is that the Württemberg says to the brothers, okay, we pass to you a contract of I guess 100,000, yeah, 100,000 rifles, but you need to buy the Royal factory in Oberdorf. So they want to release this factory. They don't want to keep anymore this factory. So the deal was, okay, we pass a contract, but you acquire the factory. And this is what happened. But the brothers don't have money. And then they request a loan to the Württemberg Bank. And this is the first time that a bank is part of Mauser. And we will see afterward that because of this, the troubles for Mauser happens, because in the end Mauser lost his company, yeah, but it's another story that we're going to discuss soon. But anyhow, the Württemberg Bank gives some money to the brothers in order to set up and to acquire the Royal factory. And in this period, 1876 on, let's say, the market for the rifle was quite busy because the Model 71 was sold in Germany. They have also contract with some other, small contracts with some other countries. And the brothers decided to move in the market of the pistols. And this one is the first pistol made by Mauser. It's a C77 model. And in our safe book, we found out also who and when the first person acquired this pistol. Okay, this pistol is it's quite strange, I would say, the fact that they decided to produce a one-shot pistol in a period where already the revolver was available. Yeah, but the idea of Paul and Wilhelm Mauser was to compete with this gun here, that was the gun in use with the cavalry. Yeah, and then they produced this one-shot pistol that is way faster to load than the, let's say, obsolete model. And in fact, what happened is that this one is not a cocked, yeah, but it's just a way to help you to pull down the mechanism. When you pull down the mechanism, the pistol is loaded, you insert the cartridge, you have this small pin here that when you insert the cartridge automatically release a spring inside, the mechanism is back and close the chamber, and then you are ready to fire. So this mechanism was quite fast, and I repeat, the idea was to compete with this pistol. Was not successful at all, this design. Nowadays we have something like 10-15 pistols of this model existing in the world. After that, they moved to a new concept, new design in the revolver, the so-called zigzag revolver, C78. This one was a totally different design. You can recognize some aspect of the, let's say, different way to see the firearm from Paul Mauser, this concept of the zigzag that is used to move the drum of this revolver. But they offered this revolver to Spandau, but Spandau said, no, too late. We've already another design, what we call the Reichs revolver, that was already tested and advanced test in Spandau. So this contract was not good. They tried to sell the revolver to several countries. We have also letters, for example, where they tried to sell this revolver to the Russians as well, but in the end it was not a great success. And this one are sample of zigzag revolver. They made also the very rare zigzag carbine. By the way, one of these is for sale in those days for something like $20,000. Okay, $25,000. Just to highlight the price of these guns. Okay, while the zigzag is around $5,000 nowadays. Okay, from 76, let's say from 81, something happened. Another country, Serbia, start dealing with Mauser in order to use the M71 for the Serbian army. What happened is that Wilhelm moved to Serbia, to Belgrade, and because this contract was really delayed, Wilhelm spent lots of time in Serbia, exchanging letters every day with his brother in order to finalize some aspect of the design. And finally, the contract was signed, and this becomes the real first big, let's say, contract. And from this contract, they really get money. While from Germany they don't get too much money. Okay, so this one was really the first interesting contract money-wise for the Mauser brothers. What happened at a technical point of view? The one-shot rifle was quite obsolete, so Mauser started a new design using a feeding magazine placed under the barrel. This concept was well accepted by the German forces, mainly for a reason, because again Paul Mauser found a way to retrofit the Model 71 with this new design. So it was possible not to change completely the rifle, but simply to upgrade the rifle to this new design. Okay, this is why it was really successful, and the Germans accept this design without problems. Unfortunately, what happened is that in 1882, the brother of Paul Mauser, Wilhelm, passed away, and we have to highlight a point here that these two guys, one, Paul, was a technical guy, let's say, while Wilhelm was mainly the guy dealing with contract customers, the marketing guys, let's say. Okay, so when Wilhelm passed away, unfortunately, all the responsibility was with Paul. This is a nice page in the Mauser diary, because what we want to highlight is that we discussed already that with the son of Wilhelm Alphonse, the two families split, but the problem with the brothers was already before. So the two brothers, they don't like each other. And here, Paul Mauser, this time in pencil, wrote that, okay, if my brother didn't pass it away, we will split, we will separate one day, because we are in disaccord, we don't like each other. And then this problem carry on, as I told you already, with the son of Paul Mauser, Alphonse, and create this problem with the family. At the end, when Paul Mauser, Wilhelm Mauser passed away, Paul Mauser became economically responsible of the wife of the, let's say, the wife of Wilhelm, and also Alphonse. Yeah? By the way, Alphonse was sent to the most important school of that period. He went also in USA to work in USA, and guess what? He went also to FN to work in FN. Yeah? So just to highlight that FN was important in the design of the Love Group, and Paul Mauser sent his nephew to FN to work as an apprentice for 1 year. Here we have the contract 7184 that has been signed. Here we have one production book of that period. It's interesting, this one, just to highlight you. You see on top you have the name of different workers, because in those days the workers were paid based upon the number of parts they produced per day. Okay, so there was one guy. In this case, the name of this guy is Zirn. That account for each single worker how many pieces were done per day in order to define at the end of the month the salary. And now something happened, because Paul Mauser realized that for him was almost impossible to deal alone with this company. Okay, it was too much work. Yeah? And then Paul Mauser was a brilliant guy, but was a technician with zero competence about market, business, money, and so on. And this opened the door to the fact that the Württemberg Bank acquired, you see, the 83% of the stock of the company. Yeah? It means that maybe Paul Mauser was not aware about this, I don't know, but he's lost his company. Do you agree? With the 83%, the company is gone. Yeah? And in fact, Paul Mauser was appointed as a technical director of the Mauser company. But Alfred Kauler became the guy that, this person here, became the guy that was managing financial business contact with Mauser. Okay? So in the end, Paul Mauser lost his company. In that period, a good friend of Paul Mauser, Max Wilhelm Duttenhofer, developed a new powder that is the brown prismatic powder for guns, and this allows Paul Mauser to start reducing the caliber of the cartridge. Yeah, then this will achieve better with the smokeless nitro powder, but already in that period they start reducing the cartridge, the size of the cartridge of the rifle. And finally, we arrive in 1886 when the most, let's say, most significant contract was signed with Turkey, with the Ottoman Empire, to a huge amount of rifle, 500,000. Yeah, there was incredible amount of rifle. If you keep in mind that the daily production of Mauser was 250 rifles per day, they have to produce 500,000 plus 50,000 carbine. Yeah? And at this point something happened, because Loew, that was a very clever guy and opportunistic guy, used this contract to say, okay, dear Paul, you cannot fulfill this contract alone. Yeah? You have to work together. Yeah? Also because the Turkish requests that when Mauser was producing this rifle, they can only work for the Turkish. It was not allowed to Mauser to give a contract to any other country. Okay? So Loew says, okay, if you do this, your market is gone, because when you finish with the Turkish, what you can do, you spend maybe 10 years or to finalize this. And then they say, okay, let's work together. And then Loew acquired the stock from the bank and become the owner of Mauser. Yeah? This is why Mauser was then was then part of the Loew, let's say, empire. And here, what happened is that, for example, here is Paul Mauser that write in his diary the day when this contract was signed with the Ottoman Empire. And the Ottomans, the Turkish, require to have a committee in Oberdorf, an acceptance committee, in order to verify the guns. And for this purpose, they made this, let's say, quite funny building, the Turkenbau. And the Turkenbau was used by the Turkish officer as a house, yeah, where they live when in Oberdorf to verify the guns. This activity was very long, take several years to be finalized. In 88-89, something happened. The Germans changed the design. The Model 88 was introduced. The Model 88 is not a Mauser design. It's a combination of Mauser and Maliker design, nothing to do with Mauser. But in those days, Paul Mauser was also designing a new rifle that was the first rifle using the nitro power. And this one was then sent to the Belgians and to the English, to the Brits, for verification, for testing. And in the end, 1 year later, in 89, the Belgians decided to use this rifle, and this became the M89 rifle. And then in another presentation, we are going to discuss about the fact that FN was established to finalize this contract. One thing that I forgot about the Ottoman contract is that this contract was what we call an open contract. It means that it was written in the contract that starting from now, every time there is an improvement in the design of the rifle, we can stop the current production and start with a new production. You see the point? Because this contract was over 10 years. So in 10 years, the design improved. So when the design was improved, okay, we stop with the previous production and we start with a new one, without dealing with other contracts, stuff like that. And this is what happened in this period. Actually, what happened is that the Turkish, they used this concept in order to start using the Model 90, that was just a Model 89 modified for the cartridge in use in Turkey. Then here there is a reference to Alex Resimon, that was the main person in charge of dealing with Belgium for the Belgian contract. 91-92, improvement of the 89 design, the 92 and then 93 become the Spanish 93 model, and now, okay, we can discuss hours about all these different rifles, but of course is outside the scope of this presentation. But starting from now, with the Model 80, 90, 92, 93, we have lots of contracts, lots of countries that are using this design for the different contracts. Okay, 94, 95, Oberdorf is growing because of all the, let's say, external committee coming from verifying the rifle and so on. So they also built a hotel casino in Oberdorf. And then finally, in 96, a new design for pistol was introduced, the C96. This one is the first semi-automatic pistol that succeeded in a military contract, and actually was the Turkish, the Ottoman, they buy 1,000 pistols. Now, can you imagine an empire that acquire 1 million rifle that buy only 1,000 pistols? Yeah? This one was just because Paul Mauser asked for this. Yeah? It was not well accepted, this pistol, by the Turkish forces, and in fact this pistol was used for the Sultan personal guards, so for people that stand in the palace of the Sultan, but not really using this gun. But it was enough to say, okay, we have a military design that it has been accepted, and this one are a few C96 different design. You have the so-called 6-shot on the left, the 10-shot that is most common, and a very rare 20-shot. In the production book, we were able to locate who was the first guy that acquired C96, and actually, guess what? Was a Turkish officer that was working in Karlsruhe, and he acquired the first C96 pistol. In 1897, this Turkish contract was established for 1,000 pistols. This is reported, is written down is reported in the same book. And here you have a typical Turkish C96 that is characterized by the tugra on the left panel of the pistol. The tugra is the symbol of the Sultan, just to clarify this point. This one is the Turkish, or better, the Ottoman C96. You see that one of the features was to have these numbers in Arabic, and this was common, because you remind, in these days, Mauser produced thousands of Turkish rifles, and also Turkish rifles, they have these Arabic numbers. In 98, okay, the Gewehr 98 was designed and was set up, was used by the German army, and becomes one of the most common and important design that has been used all over in the area of let's say bolt action rifles. So this one is everybody know about the model 98. What is also interesting to highlight is that in 98 the Italians approach Mauser to acquire 5,000 C96 pistols. There is a contract for this, and you can see here some documents from the archive. As a background, you have a letter, one of the letters exchanged with the Arsenal in Venice that was in charge of dealing with all this contract. You have a diary with the meetings note of the meetings with the Italians, and you have a business card of Felice Grondona that was the equivalent of Alex Resimon or the Uber Fred for the Ottomans, so was the guy dealing with this contract. This one is the Italian C96. What is important to highlight is that the Italians request quite a number of improvements to the original design, and the outcome of this was that a new model was set up. Now, for people that is expert with this one is a flat side model with some improvement with respect to the previous cone hammer design. Okay, this has nothing to do with guns, but just to highlight the personality of Paul Mauser. Paul Mauser wrote in his diary, this day, I don't remember, is October the 1st, I guess, I cannot read really, but okay, in October, Paul Mauser was visited the Pope Leo XIII in Rome, and he wrote, this one is the most important day of my life. This just to highlight that Paul Mauser was a very Catholic man, and every day before going to workshop, he went to the mass. So he was used to do this, and in his diary, you can always find reference to God and to, in general, the Catholic religion. In 1901, something happened. During the test of a self-loading rifle, there was an accident, and Paul Mauser lost his eye, and also his right arm was damaged by this. And you have to realize that one of the big, most important unsuccessful activity of Paul Mauser that was really frustrating for him was the design of a semi-automatic rifle, of a self-loading rifle. If we come back to 1896, when you remember the Kaiser Wilhelm II tested the carbine, C96 carbine number 1 in Potsdam, close to Berlin, one of the questions the Kaiser Wilhelm II that was not interested in the pistol, but he said, this design is very good for rifle, and asked Paul Mauser, how long does it take for you to implement this design in a rifle? And Paul Mauser says, 5 years. This is the answer of Paul Mauser. But this never happened. Paul Mauser was never able, for different reasons, to have a real working self-loading design. So in 1994, you see different countries, also the Chinese in Oberdorf, why not? They were there for acquiring and testing rifles, so now the name of Mauser is all over the world with his rifles, so very famous now. 97, 98, we are in the period where the Parabellum, the Luger pistol, shops, is on the market, and the C96 is old, is obsolete. So Paul Mauser tried to design a new concept of pistol, And what Paul Mauser did always, this is common with Paul Mauser starting from now for all this experiment, is try to use design that was for rifle to pistols. Okay, and this one is an example of this, the model C0608, this pistol here, that is nothing more than the implementation on a pistol of the C06 design used for a self-loading rifle. This one is the pistol, yeah, it's not really different, looks like a C96. Notice that the magazine now you can remove, while in the C96 you cannot, at least in the original one you cannot. And this pistol is nowadays very rare. It has been produced in something like 100 pieces in order to give this to the Germans for testing purposes. The test was not good because the Parabellum won. The Parabellum became the P08 for the Germans. This pistol was abandoned. The result of this is that this pistol, as I told you before, cost something like $50,000 in the current collector market. 1999-10, a new concept is introduced. This one, guess what? Really to compete with Browning, yeah, the small pocket pistol, yeah. And in this period also we have a new engineers that arrived in Oberdorf, is Joseph Nickel, and this was a young engineer with new ideas, and they introduce what we call the family concept that will be discussed by Mark afterward. But just to make short, the idea is to design a pistol for 9mm and then scale down this design to 765 and 635, okay? Just to reuse the same design, yeah? We will discuss afterward if this design was successful or not. But okay, let's say for 9mm was not successful, while it was good for 765 and 635mm, and this one is the outcome of this design, a model M1000, let's say 1910, yeah, was the year of production, and the model was called model 1910. In 1912, we are now approaching the end of the life of Paul Mauser, means also the end of our presentation about the life of Paul Mauser. Paul Mauser achieved a very important, let's say, commemorative period. It's the fact that he's working from more than 60 years, so he got lots of honor for this. First of all, he can use now von, yeah, just to highlight that he got this honor from the Kaiser. Finally, he became engineer. As I told you, his scholastic background was just a 14 years old child with basic school, but he was appointed as an engineer. And also Oberdorf put a plate on the initial workshop that, by the way, is still there in Oberdorf, where Wilhelm and Paul Mauser worked. In 1913, we have something that is also interesting to highlight, is a contract for 50,000 C96 pistol that, if fulfilled, will be the most important contract for C96. But this never happened. Never happened because the period in Mexico was very complex with revolution, counter-revolution, and so on. So in the end, this contract was not finalized. One of the aspects of studying the archive is that everybody knows about successful contract because we have the gun. But nobody knows about the contract that were not successful, like this one. And there are more unsuccessful contracts than successful one. And only because the study of the archive, we can point out that these guns were partially produced. They produced 20,000 guns. They didn't sell these guns to Mexico, and they were reused in the First World War. Yeah? Just to highlight this point. And here you have a letter exchange with Mexico for this contract. This one is another contract, the Persian contract of that has been signed. Sorry, let me come back here. Yeah, they signed with the Persia an order of 1,100 pistols. So again, a small contract. But what's interesting about this contract is that if you speak with the collector of Mauser, the question is why there are so many Persian Mauser in Germany? Yeah? This one was a question, and the answer, we found this answer in the sale book, is that because the Persians pay only for 600, so the other 500 were not acquired. Yeah? Again, a partially successful contract. And what happened is that these 500 were reused during the First World War. And the Persian, they required the C96 without stock. So the real Persian in Persia are without stock, while the one used in the First World War in Germany, they have the stock. Yeah, this one just a difference between the two, let's say, the two different contracts. Yeah. So this one is a Persian C96, and again here the Persian logo. That is this leon with the sun and so on. Finally, the end of the life of Paul Mauser in 1914, and okay, there was a big ceremony in Oberdorf. His friend Zeppelin, that you remember, we start with Zeppelin in this postcard, and we end with Zeppelin, because during the funeral, Zeppelin was passing above Oberdorf with this Zeppelin, yeah, as a sign of honor to Paul Mauser. Okay, so this is the life. Yeah, I'm on time now. Oh, very good. So it's okay. That's all for the life of Paul Mauser.